The world tightens its belt. Rains miss their cue, then skip whole seasons. Green surrenders to ochre. The horizon trembles in heat. Africa is no longer a cradle of swaying canopy. It is a stage of distance, glare, and dust. Where forests once braided shade into safety, the land now speaks in a harsher tongue. Water is rumor, food is work, and survival, no longer a dance, becomes a grindstone. Out of this age of hunger rises a shape evolution forged, like a tool, a skull-made fortress, a jaw-made engine, teeth like millstones under enamel thick as dusk. They are Paranthropus, the robust ones. Not inventors, not dreamers, but answers to a single question. How long can life endure when the earth refuses softness? The eastern rift opens like a wound that never fully heals. Volcanoes breathe ash that falls like a second sky, thin as secret and sharp as memory. Rivers cut deep and run shallow, then vanish into ground that drinks them whole. Acacia trees issue narrow shade, the kind that argues rather than offers. Here, near old lake margins and seasonal streams, Paranthropus boisei in the east and Paranthropus robustus in the south find what endurance requires. Sedges and reeds where water lingers. Tubers armored in soil, pith and bark that outlast fruit, seeds that wait for the dry out. Where others starve, the robust ones stay. The wind lifts dust from their shoulders and carries it nowhere, because there is nowhere kinder to go. Look closely at the face that met the drought. Zygomatic arches flare wide, opening corridors for muscles that pull with the patience of rope. A sagittal crest rises like a low ridge, anchoring tendons that once drove the jaw like a press. The mandible is thick, its hinge stout, a door meant to close against resistance. Behind the lips, megadont molars, broad, flat, enamel stacked thick, meet the problem the land keeps setting. Chew what's left. The rest of the body follows the brief. A rib cage like a bellows. Limbs sturdy, compact, made for force more than flight. Hands strong, capable of uprooting, levering, cracking, but not yet the precise chisels of later Homo. Feet carry weight without complaint, from mud-fringed reeds to banked ash flats. This is not a design for speed. It is a design for staying. Their pantry is not kind. It is an inventory of work. Rhizomes that grip the earth, corms that store starch like winter inside their skins, pith that splinters, sedge hearts and grass bases cut close to water, occasional fruit wind-blown from scrub, seeds sealed behind husk and grit. The jaw does what hands cannot. Hours pass in the slow grind of extraction, fiber into pulp, pulp into fuel, fuel into one more mile between droughts. Teeth wear, but enamel holds. Faces thicken with use, a living ledger of meals won from plants that never wanted to be eaten. At the edge of reed beds, shell and small bone offer a stiffer problem, the promise of trapped nutrients if persistence finds a seam. A stone in a hand is not yet a tool by design, but it is a partner by opportunity. Pound, pry, wedge. If it yields to insistence. Survival here is a memory of where water was and a guess of where it will be. Lake margins shrink, migrate, bloom, disappear. Clay pans crack into tessellations of thirst, then, with one storm, become mirrors that vanish by noon. Paranthropus settles where water repeats itself. Even if the repetition is only a rumor, old channels that refill first, seep lines under cut banks, springs that resist the season by a week. They do not range like runners, they orbit like keepers, a slow procession around the relics of a faithless land. Routes are chosen for what they hide as much as where they lead. Reed lines that break sight lines for predators, shallow crossings that show a crocodile's signature, ridge shadows that offer noon a thin mercy. Their journeys are short in miles, long in caution. No solitary giant survives here. They form bands, loose, practical, and present bodies sharing vigilance, numbers trading odds, proximity teaching young where endurance draws its lines. Sexual dimorphism writes itself in bone, males larger, crests more pronounced, females smaller, faces slightly less monumental. Yet the plain disciplines bravado. Noise invites teeth, swagger burns water. Dominance is tempered by a fact older than hierarchies. Heat punishes fools. Communication is not conversation, but it is choreography. Bluff stances, chest width made into a message, jaw display without commitment. Low calls that travel just far enough, sudden stillness that freezes a group into a single decisive action. Infants ride, belly or back, while hands uproot what the day permits. Play is brief and useful, practice in balance, in grip, in reading ground. Night is a ring of bodies in thin shade or among reeds where wind hides smell. Sleep is half a wager, half a debt paid to tomorrow. The rift's hunters write their own rules. Cats move like answers to questions you forgot to ask. Spotted hyenas read the world through scent and probability. Leopards own the seam between scrub and darkness. Crocodiles are the old bureaucracy of water. Paranthropus carries an advantage that cannot be sprinted: mass, stillness, and resolve. Few predators prefer a fight that injures. Most choose meals that run or panic. A band that gathers, squares its shoulders, and refuses the script often persuades danger to choose elsewhere. But refusal is not invulnerability. Calves are currency that all predators accept. To protect them, the band becomes geometry. Adults at the edges, young inside. Movement coordinated not by plan, but by practice. When flight is chosen, it is short and covers. It is also a statement. Not today, not here. Years sharpen and blunt in cycles. A wet season arrives like a reprieve. Sedges thicken, tubers swell, flowers promise brief sweetness. Reed birds write whole alphabets in the air. Chewing becomes less negotiation and more work well paid. Calves find energy to play, adults to rest. Then the dry season returns with interest. Soils calcine. Shade leaves at noon. Even the wind feels used. Now the specialization shows its crown and its cost. The jaw that breaks down food from fiber also creates time from emptiness. But specialization narrows the future. If the rains miss twice, if a lake shifts beyond reach, if the underground pantry empties, what is built to endure may not be built to change. In the same landscapes, another lineage is sketching a different answer. Smaller jaws, lighter faces, hands that hesitate differently over stone. Homo habilis will be the name we give them, the first to shape sharpness into intention. From a distance, Paranthropus watches without understanding and without needing to. He sees stones collide and become edges, marrow coaxed from bone, meat stripped with efficiency unknown to teeth alone. He sees groups cluster, gesture, share, and new geometries of cooperation. For a while, both answers thrive, the jaw and the hand, the grinder and the shaper, endurance and invention. The plain, impartial hosts both experiments. But invention cheats distance. It multiplies calories from carcasses found rather than chased. It writes new routes into old maps. And in hard years, the hand that sharpens gains a margin the jaw cannot. Fossils keep score without bias. Skulls of Paranthropus boisei. Great faces with crests like low sails and cheekbones flared like shields. Sleep in beds of ancient lake mud in the east. Paranthropus robustus, in the south, leaves jaws and teeth that resemble tools, mistaking themselves for anatomical features. Microwear and isotopic whispers tell converging stories. Tough foods often, fallback foods reliably when the world turns mean. C4 plants and wetland fare a strong thread through the diet. Enamel is not a choice. It is a contract signed with drought, and then, layer by layer, the robust ones thin from the record. Not abruptly, not everywhere at once, but steadily, as climates wobble and corridors tighten. Specialists inherit security and hazard in equal measure. In the room where the world asks one question, they answer perfectly. However, the world rarely confines itself to one question. When wetlands retract beyond walking distance, when sedges yield to dust, when underground storage empties and does not refill, their strength, astonishing, undeniable, becomes a beautiful limit. They do not vanish for weakness. They vanish for fidelity to the world that made them. Evening lowers gold over reed and ash. A band of Paranthropus settles near a bank cut by last season's flood. Calves fidget. Adults grind the day's last mouthfuls into tomorrow. A kite wheels where thermals keep their promises. Some distance away, a small figure of another kind tests a new edge on an old stone. Both are answers. Both are true. Only one will learn to carry fire. Night gathers. The wind at last is cool. The great faces relax. Teeth rest in jaws that have earned their sleep 1,000 times over. Paranthropus does not pass on tools or tales or sparks guarded under the dark. He passes on time, time held against drought, time bought from scarcity, time in which other experiments could unfold. The robust ones are not a failure. They are a gift to the story, a proof that life can hold its ground when the ground grows hard, a reminder that strength without change can become a beautiful cul-de-sac, a warning, whispered in enamel and dust, that every advantage has a season. From their long vigil, a narrower-faced cousin steps forward with a different wager. Homo habilis, the first innovator. Hands that do not just hold, but shape. Minds that do not just remember, but plan. Hunger that does not just endure, but invents.